Hey everyone, welcome to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. We're coming to you courtesy of our broadcasting partner, moretalk.tv. And I'm honored to welcome to the show this week Jim Mullaney. Jim is an astronomy lecturer and author who has published nearly 1,000 articles and 10 books on observing the wonders of the heavens, and he has also logged in over 20,000 hours of stargazing time. He's the former curator of the Bull Planetarium, an Institute of Popular Science in Pittsburgh, and he is also the director of the DuPont Planetarium at USCA. He served as staff astronomer at the University of Pittsburgh's Allegheny Observatory and as an editor for Sky and Telescope magazine. And he's one of the contributors to Carl Sagan's original award-winning Cosmos PBS television series. His lifelong mission has been to get others to look up at the majesty of the night sky and personally experience the joy of stargazing. In recognition of his work, he has been elected a Fellow of the prestigious Royal Astronomical Society of London. His best-selling books include Edgar Cayce and the Cosmos, published by a.r.e. Press, and of course his latest book, Celebrating the Universe, Spirituality and Science of Stargazing. Jim, thank you so much for joining us on Reflections today.
Well, it's my privilege too. I love having the opportunity to talk about the universe, all the wonders out there with anyone that will listen.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you on. I want to start with the first question of how did you first get involved with the a.r.e.?
Well, I've had a long interest in it, just reading Cayce material along with a lot of other esoteric things, and I was fascinated, about his background, and I really believed that and still do, that he was probably the greatest psychic that ever lived. Anyway, but I started lecturing there over 25 years ago. The first conference was called We Are Not Alone. It was about extraterrestrial life, and from that point on, I've been coming once or twice a year ever since.
That's wonderful. We're glad to have you. And I want to talk a little bit about your latest book. It's entitled Celebrating the Universe, the Spirituality and Science of Stargazing. And I'm curious, how did this book come about?
Well, Brent, it's I think an amazing story. For over 25 years, I've been trying to get it published. Every few months, I'd try another publisher, all the mainstream ones and New Age ones, and I either got total silence or not interested, and once in a while I'd get a comment that it's way ahead of its time. But I'm persistent, so I kept sending this out and kept getting rejections. It kind of reminds me of James Michener's story. Anyway, I finally decided my last attempt was to send it to Hay House, who, of course, publishes Wayne Dyer and many other, well-known speakers and writers. And I got an immediate automated reply saying, we no longer accept unsolicited manuscripts, and also you need an agent. And I said, okay, I'll try again in a few more months. Well, 3 days later, I get an email from a woman there. She said, I don't know how this happened, but your proposal ended up on my desk. She says, I studied astronomy at Caltech, and I love astronomy. She took it to the president CEO, Reed Tracy, and they accepted it and decided to publish it. So I think the time finally did come right. It was the right time to have this happen.
Right, absolutely. And what was the process of writing this book for you? It seems like you said it was a long, drawn-out process. What was that journey like?
Well, it was frustrating at times, again, because I couldn't get a publisher. Actually, writing the book was based on my, pushing 60 years of stargazing time, 20,000 hours at the telescope and binoculars and so on. And I'm a freak as far as collecting quotes, all kinds of quotations, thousands of them in my files about the universe and things related to it. So actually writing the book was maybe a year process, but it had been churning around in my mind for quite a long time. And once I got the okay from Hay House, I really dove into it, and less than a year later, the book was ready to be published.
That's wonderful. And were you always a stargazer as a child? Was this something that you were always drawn to?
Yeah, I was born as a stargazer. 5 years old, I knew I wanted to do something with the stars, and my uncle came over one night when I was 8 years old and showed me the moon and Jupiter through his telescope. I went totally bananas, running up and down the streets, pounding on everybody's door, getting them to come out, and I kind of got the title as a celestial evangelist because of that, and then went on to build my first telescope when I was 12. So it's been a lifelong, not only an avocation, but later on it became my profession.
That's wonderful. And amongst the A.R.E. Family, you are known for bringing your telescopes to all of your lectures. And of course, if the weather's permitting, you take everybody outside to do some stargazing. What has it been like experiencing that with the A.R.E. community?
Well, the frustration is the weather, and if you could,
Right.
when we have had clear nights, it's been absolutely exhilarating. People have broken into tears seeing the beauty of things they're looking at, explanations of delight. Oh my God, look at this! Is this real? I can show all the incredible images you want from the Hubble Space Telescope, which I do in my programs, and that's updated constantly, all the latest images. But seeing the real thing, getting those photons in your eye from the real thing, is what really electrifies people. So when we've been lucky enough to get a clear night, it's been wonderful for them and for
Absolutely.
me.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, your new book is called Celebrating the Universe, which begs the question one might ask, why should we celebrate the universe?
Well, that is a good question, and many people have. The great writer Ray Bradbury said he came to celebrate. Gerard Manley Hopkins said, "What I do is me. For this I came. I came to celebrate." But Brent, the key thing here is that you and I are children of the stars. We are literally made of stardust. If you take a moment and touch one of your fingernails right now, the calcium in that fingernail, in your teeth and bones, the blood, the iron in the blood flowing through your bloodstreams, the the carbon that makes up all of our cells. In fact, the potassium that's in your brain, so people can understand this program, all came from within the cores of dying stars, exploding stars eons ago. We're literally made of stardust, and many of us believe in this field that our destiny is to return to the stars. Even Edgar Cayce did talk about that, to back to the source. So we
Right,
should celebrate the
absolutely.
universe.
I couldn't agree more. And in celebrating the universe, going about that process, do we need a telescope? Is that a requirement to enjoy stargazing?
Not at all. You can see examples of every major class of celestial objects, obviously from the moon and the sun and the planets, but all the way out to galaxies. You can see several naked eye galaxies like the one in Andromeda or our own Milky Way galaxy, of course. Then when you turn a pair of binoculars onto the heavens, it's just like opens a whole new universe to you. But no, just unaided eye. That's how astronomy was done for countless centuries, as you know, and many discoveries were made without a telescope.
Absolutely. And I want to dive in a couple topics that you touch on in your latest book. One in particular is, what is the biocosmos that you talk about in the book?
That's actually the biocosmos, and bio meaning, of course, life. And the universe is, we're absolutely convinced. In fact, there's very much strong evidence. I'll be making a couple announcements at the Ancient Mysteries Conference about discoveries just made this past week.
Oh,
But
wow.
the universe is teeming with life. As Thomas Carlyle said, if nobody else is out there, what a waste of space. But we don't think the creator of the universe wasted any space on us, just us. And the amazing thing is, Brenton, and this isn't a guess, this has been done statistically many times on Cray 3 supercomputers, for example. If you were to count every single grain of sand on all the beaches and all the deserts on the entire planet Earth, when you were done, you'd be nowhere near, it's a factor of 10, nowhere near the number of stars we can now see with our largest telescopes. And stars are
Wow.
suns, and they all, we now know, have planets as part of their natural birth process. So, as they say on Star Trek, it's a big universe, Mr. Scott, and there's probably life teeming everywhere. The average star we see in our Milky Way galaxy is anywhere from 5 to 10 billion years older than the sun. So
Wow.
if life
That's
began there,
incredible.
it's got to be advanced if it's still there.
Yeah, it really is so mind expanding to think in that way.
hmm I
And what
love
is
it
the
when we're at Virginia Beach, to take people down to the beach and just have them pick up handfuls of sand, let it trickle through their fingers, and realize that for every one of those sand grains, there's a star shining out there.
That's amazing. And Virginia Beach is a special place for that. When the weather's clear, it's wonderful to stargaze out on the beach.
Absolutely, it is. And Brent, I have a quote here I might share with you,
Yeah, absolutely.
talking about why should we celebrate in the universe being alive. It's from the author Donald Miller, and he said, "I sometimes look into the endless heavens, the cosmos of which we can't find the edge, and ask God what it means. Do you really do all of this to dazzle us? Do you really keep it shifting, rolling around the pinions of stars to stave off boredom? God forbid your glory would be our distraction. and God forbid we would ignore your glory. How can we not celebrate the universe?
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And keeping in your latest book, what is the photon connection that you talk about?
Well, this is pretty amazing, and it's something that we sophisticated adults kind of overlook. I've had children realize, oh, yes, that's obvious. And that is simply the fact that we see things by the photons of light they emit. And as you know, photons are very strange. They have a dual nature. They behave as waves, but they also behave as particles. I like to think of it as particles traveling in waves. And so when you look out at night at a star, and you don't need a telescope or even binoculars, just pick a star. The light you see, which came from the core of that star where the thermonuclear reactions are occurring, those photons came out of the star and traveled across the immensity of time and space and ended their journey on the retina of your eye as you're looking at it. So the bottom line here is you're actually in direct physical contact. Particles from that star are hitting the retina of your eye. As Sarah Teasdale said, I know I'm honored to be witness of so much majesty. So that's amazing. When you look at the universe, you're connecting with it directly, physically.
Absolutely. And I think the whole overarching theme of what we're talking about is having this cosmic perspective, which for me is just something that really keeps me balanced and keeps me grounded, and it puts your own life in perspective, and especially your own problems. I know people stress constantly about little things, and I think when you have that cosmic perspective, it really helps a lot. And of course, your late friend and mentor, Carl Sagan, who is very well known, always talked about why this was so important. And can you touch about why it's so important in your life to keep that cosmic perspective?
Oh, yes. Given the insanity of the world we're living in today, the society, civilization, I put that in quotes, civilization. Anyway,
Right.
You do need to be balanced, and you do need to realize that there is order out there, and we see a lot of chaos here on the earth. And as Sagan pointed out, and he was really right about it, if we don't channel our energies into something beyond us, exploring the universe, we're going to self-destruct. We're going to use that energy to, destroy ourselves. So, Brent, I meant to mention, I always tell my audiences that I'm just, and I mean this sincerely, a humble stargazer. You can't possibly have a big head and be an astronomer as you look out in the immensity of the universe. And as you said, it really gives you the perspective of where we are and how small we are. And yet in our smallness, we have the capacity to understand this amazing universe.
Right. That's a very powerful tool, and I'm very happy
Yes.
that you stress that cosmic perspective, because I think it's one thing that can really help to shift people's lives.
Yes, and that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked a little bit about Carl Sagan and this cosmic perspective. And I understand that you were an advisor for the original Cosmos series by Carl Sagan.
Well, not an advisor, but I did contribute some of my writings he used in one of the episodes, and I considered him a friend and definitely a mentor. But that was an honor just to have part of something some things I had written included in the script. That was the original Cosmos, of course, not the remake.
Right. And what's your opinion on the remake? Have you gotten a chance to indulge?
Oh yes, and I know Neil deGrasse Tyson well, and he told me several years ago when they decided to redo the Cosmos that Carl's shoes are big shoes to fill, and he was right. And Neil did a great job. My complaint was that unless you were fortunate to get a channel that didn't have ads, see, the original Cosmos was on PBS, no ads,
Right.
and I kind of
Right.
expected that. And we unfortunately had to watch it on Fox, and it was just one violent commercial after another. To
Right.
the point that it just broke up the script, I thought.
Yeah, I could see that, absolutely.
That's a personal opinion, but I was unhappy about that, but the content was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love PBS. I think we all could agree on that. And I wanted to talk about your book, Edgar Cayce and the Cosmos. And you mentioned in this book that only two stars really came up in the readings, and these were Polaris and, of course, Arcturus, which you talk quite a bit about. And you also
Yes.
put special significance on the repeated mentioning of Arcturus. Can you tell us about what you found about this repeated reference to this star?
Well, Arcturus is certainly one of the brightest stars in the sky. I believe it's the third brightest in the northern hemisphere. A beautiful golden orange star, visible all spring into early summer. And Edgar Cayce himself, in one of his readings, said he had gone there twice. He had actually made 2 journeys there, and he called it the Stargate, which is pretty amazing, I think. He saw that as an entrance to other realms. So Arcturus is really very special.
Absolutely. And you referenced Cayce as talking about the music of the spheres in his readings, which I think is something that is so incredible. And I've found a connection with a few other people who refer to the music of the spheres, which you point out yourself. What does this reference to the music of the spheres mean to you? And I understand that you have related it to recent findings of black holes as well, which is incredibly fascinating.
That's right. Well, in the Bible, for example, in Job, it talks about the morning stars singing together when the earth was created, and that was all taken to be just poetic license. But it turns out that using Cray supercomputers and giant radio telescopes and Moog synthesizers, that it's been discovered that some of the stars are giving off harmonics. They're giving off, which when it's converted to sound, sounds like music. So there is music coming from the stars, and others like Kepler, the great astronomer Kepler, constantly talked about that, the rhythm of the planets, their harmonies, and so on. But yes, it's been discovered that some black holes, amazingly, are giving off a musical note. It's B flat, which is the tone or note that a saxophone is tuned to. So it's one of the folks in my audience at the a.r.e. said, well, God turns out to be a sax player. But it's amazing that there is music coming from the universe. We're just too deaf to hear it.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And it has such far-reaching implications when I know there's a new field of music therapy where they're using different tones to work on healing parts of the body, which, of course, could be directly related.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Yeah. Jim, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we will be right back to talk more with Jim Mullaney about astronomy and, of course, the Cayce material here on Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. And welcome back to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Joining me today on the show is astronomer and lecturer Jim Mullaney. And we were talking a little bit about black holes when we last left off. I want to kind of stay on that topic because to me this is an incredibly fascinating, I guess you'd call it a new field. I think there's probably more research being done on black holes than there was in the past. I think many stargazers are very fascinated by the powerful mystery of black holes because it seems like there's so much still to be discovered about what exactly is causing them, the power that they have, everything really that you can imagine. Can you tell us a little bit about the most current research on the topic?
Well, going back a ways, I mean, first of all, they were predicted, and then suspected, and now there's no question that black holes exist. In fact, there's several sizes. There's stellar black holes, the size of stars, and then there's galactic black holes. Our Milky Way galaxy has one and possibly two that have the mass of several billion suns. They seem to be part and parcel of the universe, and the exciting thing is that these may be the doorways to other parts of the universe that the science fiction writers have long dreamed about. They may be subways in the sky. And we have no technology to, thank goodness, we're quarantined for now, no technology to take advantage of this, but I'm sure other advanced civilizations are definitely using those to go from one place in the universe to the other. Black holes, Brent, so that folks will get a perspective on this. A black hole is a sun, say the size of ours, And by the way, you can put 1,000,000 planet Earths inside the sun. But something a little more massive than the sun shrunk down to the size of a city block. And if you took a cubic inch of a black hole and brought it here to our gravitational field here on the Earth, well, first of all, it wouldn't stay here. It would go down through the center of the Earth and up the other side. Nothing could hold it up because that cubic inch, just a piece as big as an ice cube, would weigh in at 1 billion, that's a billion tons per cubic inch. And the amazing thing is, we talk about cosmic perspective. If you took the entire human race, all 7 billion of us, and compressed us down to the density of a black hole, we would all fit inside the space of one single raindrop.
Wow. That's unbelievable. Yeah, it really does. I'm trying to wrap my head around that right now. Wow.
Yes. And Brenton, if you want to go further on black holes, you asked about some of the latest research. We knew black holes were spinning. Nothing is static in the universe. Everything is rotating and revolving around something else. And but no computer on the planet Earth could handle the mathematics of something that complex. Well, a genius by the name of Dr. Kerr linked together multiple Cray computers and solved the equations of a spinning black hole. And guess what he discovered? What the science fiction writers have known, what Walt Disney knew in his movie Black Hole. At the core of the black hole, on the axis of a black hole, there is an eye of calm, almost like during a a hurricane. Right. And if you're directly on axis, it is possible theoretically to go through that corridor to what's called a wormhole into another universe, another space, another time, another place in our universe. So that's an amazing discovery. It was, it was prophesized or believed that it was possible, but now we have mathematical proof that there is this corridor going through the center of one.
Wow, that's incredible, because it really has, for those who are really into the extraterrestrial theories, it has such far-reaching implications of there could be somebody who knows, there could be life out there, the intelligent life that knows about this, that are, could be using it to, and of course in the future we could potentially utilize that as well.
Well, considering that one of our primary activities on this planet is Carl Sagan called it tribal warfare, it's good that we don't have the ability to do this and take our violence out into the universe. So we are quarantined for the time being, but given enough time, and if we survive and looking into the future, we may find a way to use black holes. It's out there waiting to be discovered how to do it.
Absolutely. And I think you raised a good point where a lot of people will argue that why should we be worrying about space travel and expanding, taking humans out into space to the far reaches when we haven't balanced things, and things are so violent, and there's so much turmoil here on Earth. What's your opinion on that?
Another note on that is you often hear people say that they think the space program is a waste of money. Well, just for their information, guess what the ROI, the return on investment of the entire space program from when it started, and by the way, Saturday, I'm not sure when this program is going to air, but October 4th is one of the many dates people forget, including the date of the first moon landing, but October 4th is Sputnik, that's when the space age began. But from the time our program began, up to all the latest probes we have out there and so on, including the Hubble telescope, the ROI is 700%. For every dollar spent on the space program, 7 have come back into the economy, new jobs, new technology, and so on. So don't ever let anyone tell you the space program's a waste of money.
Right. I believe you. That's wonderful. Good to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to discuss a few topics again on your latest book, Celebrating the Universe. In it, you talk about stargazing as a therapeutic activity, and you talk about a number of things: celestial meditation, expansion of consciousness, just all these therapeutic things that you can gain from stargazing. And I'd like to first talk about the overall therapeutic effect of stargazing.
Well, nothing takes the weight of the world off your shoulders like going out on a clear night and just standing there in silence and looking up. So in the stress-filled world today, it's hard to get silence and peace of mind, and anybody that's tried it knows that there is this calming influence of standing there and looking at the night-filled sky. So In fact, some psychiatrists and psychologists are using astronomy, stargazing, as a means of reducing stress-related diseases.
Wow, that's
So
wonderful.
it does work. And related to that is celestial meditation. You can take something like a star rising over the horizon, one of the brighter stars like Sirius or Aldebaran or any of the really bright stars, Arcturus, and when they first come over the horizon, they scintillate like crazy due to atmospheric turbulence. Well, you can sit there transfixed, and this becomes a mandala. You can actually meditate on that. So those two kind of
Absolutely.
go together.
And I found in my personal journey, the moon is quite a wonderful mandala, especially the full moon in particular. I would use that for meditation years ago, and
That's
still I'm very
excellent,
drawn to that.
Brendan, especially when it's rising, okay? Coming
Hmm.
over the horizon, it looks so enormous. And by the way, the moon's not rising, of course. It's the Earth setting, the horizon of the Earth,
Right.
as we spin on our axis toward the east. And depending on your latitude, at over 900 miles an hour. So to watch the moon rising out of the ocean at Virginia Beach is absolutely thrilling.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are often told that we are composed of stardust. And you talked about this a little more. For somebody who just doesn't quite get that concept, how would you explain that to them? I know you talked about different pieces of our body. You talked about our fingernail and the iron in our blood. How exactly does that come to be a part of our body?
Well, the original material in the universe was hydrogen. As famous Harvard astronomer Harlow Shapley said, in the beginning was hydrogen. Paraphrasing the Bible, in the beginning was the word. Anyway, hydrogen was the primary element, and as it formed stars, these stars in the thermonuclear processes that enable them to shine, generated one element after another. And every time a star would explode, it would spew out heavier elements, nitrogen, oxygen, and eventually even heavier elements like iron. So we couldn't be here. We couldn't have the materials for our bodies to function if we hadn't gone through many generations of stars that had exploded. There's absolutely no question we are made of heavenly stardust.
Absolutely. And what is maybe something that the most common misconception that you find about people when you talk to them about stargazing or talk to them about any astronomical topic?
Well, many of them feel that they can't enjoy astronomy without a very expensive telescope. And we've
Right.
already talked, you can enjoy astronomy at the unaided eye with binoculars. And you don't have to have a multi-$1,000 telescope. In fact, there's a rule of thumb in astronomy and stargazing. The smaller the telescope, the more often you'll use it. And even a
Right.
small spotting scope that's used for nature study can show the moons of Jupiter, the rings of Saturn, many beautiful sights out there. So that's one misconception. Also, a lot of people, because of the menace of light pollution, and they're living in the cities or suburban areas, they think there's no use in looking at the stars. Well, that's
Right.
not true. You can see lots of things from the heart of a city. I have shown quasars at some of my lectures after the lecture from New York City and Philadelphia and other light polluted cities through my telescope. It doesn't look like
Wow.
much, a little blue dot, but you're seeing out billions of light years from the heart of a city.
Right. Absolutely. And many authors, yourself included, have discussed our future as human beings involving one day becoming citizens of the universe, or some people call it galactic citizens. And what exactly does this idea mean to you, to be a citizen of the universe?
Well, again, that the universe is our teeming of life. It has been for eons, that there are very advanced life forms out there. And they're waiting for us to grow up and stop fighting and evolve enough to take part in the galactic community. It takes off from the wonderful movie from the 50s, not the horrible remake, but the movie that I'm sure you've seen, The Day the Earth Stood Still, with Michael Rennie and Patricia Neal, and the
Right.
wake-up call it gave the human race. And so we are given that our primary function here, if one of them is tribal warfare, as Sagan said, we need time to evolve. But the galactic community is waiting out there for us. Even Edgar Cayce talked about us becoming citizens of the universe. In fact, Brent, one of his quotes I really love, he says, "For the universe was brought into being for the purpose of being the dwelling place of the souls of God's children. It's our birthright." So they're waiting for us. And Brent, going back to those metaphysical benefits, we talked about therapeutic relaxation and meditation, but among the other ones, one of them is expansion of consciousness.
Right.
And this relates to the galactic community because, we're trying to receive signals from other civilizations with radio telescopes, and they're using laser pulses now, trying to detect those. And but they could be using things far beyond us, gravity wave modulation or neutrino modulation. But taking that further, excuse me, many people in this field are absolutely convinced that these advanced civilizations, when they become advanced enough, they're communicating telepathically and instantly at the speed of thought. And when you're out there at night stargazing, some of the most incredible thoughts will flash through your mind, and you'll wonder, where did that come from? And all the great geniuses have talked about their big breakthroughs coming in flashes of insight. Of course, they had been thinking about problems or solving something, and all of a sudden there was the answer. But you were actually perhaps tapping into the communication between other civilizations in our galaxy and throughout the universe. So maybe that other 95% of our brain we're not using for the most part, part of that is to be able to receive this communication.
Right.
So the galactic community's out there, and they are waiting for us to grow up and join and continue to explore the universe.
Absolutely. And you touched on the therapeutic effect. We went back to that. And I'd like to stay on that topic because there's a couple other things you mentioned in your book about therapeutic effects of stargazing. And you talked about astral travel. And I think that is something that people are very, very interested in. And could you expand a little more on how stargazing could help out with astral travel?
Absolutely. Well, in increasing numbers, amateur and professional astronomers, amateurs in their backyards, professionals at major observatories on mountaintops, are coming out of the woodwork and telling of stories of having been out of their body briefly, going out to the objects they've been looking at, and instantly out there and back. And the evidence for, life beyond death, Raymond Moody's work, Eben Alexander, and so on, the literature is just so full of examples that there's more to us than the physical body. And as a stargazer, you may experience suddenly being at the object you're looking at. Brent, I think probably the best example and the easiest one for it to happen, there's no guarantee this will happen, but it can and it has many times, is to go out on a summer or fall night when the Milky Way is arching overhead. It looks like storm clouds. Some people think it's actually clouding up. But those aren't storm clouds, they're star clouds from the billions and billions of stars in our galaxy. And you look at the Milky Way, and this is even more dramatic with binoculars because you can penetrate it deeper, but that's happened with the unaided eye. You realize all of a sudden the brighter stars that you're looking at in the Milky Way are closer to you than the fainter stars. In other words, you're seeing depth, and when the eye-brain combination makes this connection, the Milky Way can jump out of the sky as a three-dimensional object. Not only that, you may end up going out there and back. I've experienced this a couple times in my many years of stargazing. Let me assure you, it is real. So astral travel, soul journeys, as Edgar Cayce called them, they really happen. Just talk to someone that's had that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I was out in Telescope Peak in Death Valley, and that was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. Spending the night on the peak of Telescope Peak, I never knew the cosmos could look there's more stars than there is dark, spaces in between the stars.
Yes.
It does. It brings you to tears. Just thinking about it again is just.
It does.
It's such a spiritual
and
experience.
There's a spiritual component too. As many people pointed out, there's something inherently spiritual about looking at the sky. And my God's a big God. She is God of the universe, not just this one small troubled planet. And all I can tell you is that when you go out and spend a few minutes even alone on a starlit night, you will come back a holier person. It's like worshiping in the temple of the skies, as many people have called it, the temple of the skies.
I love that. And it's available to everybody from all walks of life, which is so powerful.
That's right.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier, Brent, my connection with Edgar Cayce. My book, Edgar Cayce and the Cosmos, came about because of one reading. And can I share that with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
It's actually in the book. It's toward the end. It's called An Astounding Revelation. And for those that want to look it up, they're familiar with the Cayce readings. It's 1900-1. That's the 1900 reading he gave, and it was the first one for that person. And it reads as follows. Before that, we find that the entity, the person he was doing the reading for, was in the land now called Carpathian. During those periods when there was the exercising activities for the study of that which is professionally called today astrology or astronomy. For with the association of the entity then with one Corpio, this was his assistant apparently, here's the important part. An extended study was made through the abilities to use the glass that was found for the interpreting of the lights in the various heavenly bodies. My God, that's a description of a telescope in antiquity.
Right.
Somebody was using a telescope. The telescope wasn't invented until the early 1600s, as the telescope as we know it.
Right.
But the real kicker is, did you notice the words, which was found? They didn't build it. They found it. Now, I'd love to know where that early telescope is.
Absolutely. Wow. How incredible. That's why
So
one of the things I just love about the Cayce material.
Look at all the readings, all 14,000, and find connections with astronomy, cosmology, quantum physics, all of this. They're all in there.
Yeah,
and we talked about black holes earlier. Somebody asked me, well, why didn't Edgar Cayce talk about black holes? It's simple. Nobody asked them. Had somebody asked him 30, 40, 50 years ago about black holes, long before they were discovered, he could have told you all about them. But nobody thought to ask him.
The only people I think at the time who were discussing black holes were the physicists over in Europe. Einstein, Schrodinger, Heisenberg. Those were the guys that were talking about black holes. They weren't. If you weren't in the community of those physicists at the time, you didn't even know what a black hole was.
Exactly, and he did. Edgar Cayce. I mean, I'm sure in some sense he knew about them, but if somebody had just thought to ask him, how much we would have learned, how much sooner.
Oh wow. There's so many topics like that with the Cayce material. If they just thought to ask,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Jim, we're going to take another quick break, but we'll be right back to talk more with Jim Mullaney about astronomy and, of course, the Cayce material here on Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Welcome back to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Joining me today on the show is astronomer, lecturer, and author Jim Mullaney, and we are talking about everything about the cosmos. And Jim, we've been talking a lot about Hubble, and I know this is something very near and dear to you. Attending a couple of your lectures, you show some of the most brilliant Hubble pictures. I had a personal question. I was told the other day by somebody just in conversation that eventually we will stop getting pictures from the Hubble because I guess because of the distance that it's traveling away from us. Is this true?
No, that's not the reason, Brent. Hubble's in orbit, so it's not moving away from us. It's lack of funding. And in fact, the Hubble almost died a couple times, and a citizen outrage finally got the government to put some more money into updating it and keeping it going. It's our window on the universe. It's an incredible investment, and as long as it's good for a few more years at least before anything goes wrong, hopefully, and hopefully by then we'll be able to go back and service it again. It's a priceless instrument that should be kept going as long as possible. And the images are just coming in are just more and more incredible as it penetrates. I think what you were mentioning, Brent, it's penetrating deeper and deeper, even though it's still parked in orbit. It's orbiting us, rather, orbiting the Earth. So some of the images I'll be showing at the conference, they'll be downloaded from just a few days before. You can't keep up to them. Brent, there's a site for the listeners and viewers that want to go to it. It's very simple. It's www, of course, Hubble site, one word, hubblesite.org. It will pull up the whole universe for you. There's over 7,000 images available to the public on that, millions of research images for researchers, but the ones for the public, you're talking thousands of images. And they should go and click on the gallery. That's where some of the most incredible images are. and you could spend the rest of your life looking at them.
Yeah, absolutely. How many pictures are coming through? Is it like one a day, multiple per day, one a week? Or is there no
Multiple
structure like that
multiple per
really?
day. Yeah, some of the exposures though are so long that weeks may go by before they actually download the image. Those are the
Right.
really deep penetrating ones, but it can vary, and depending on what's going on. There's images of the planets coming through continuously, and they monitor them. So it's a veritable harvest, celestial harvest of wonderful images coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an astronomer, and you have such a wonderful academic background, how did you come about to researching into the Casey material? What first drew you to that?
Well, you know what? This kind of goes back to why it took so long to get my book published, and what's unique about it. I've always approached science, and I've been trained in physics as well as astronomy from a spiritual perspective. And for example, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of books out there on how to look at the sky, what to look at, how to select telescopes, so on. They've all missed the spirituality of the heavens,
Right.
and they've missed the soul of night. So I think that is really crucial that we have this spiritual connection, and that's what's driven me. I mean, I've been in research, I've been in college teaching, and so on, but it's just sharing the beauty of the night sky with as many people as possible. That's what's really important. It's the personal aspect.
Absolutely. And in talking about that, you seem to be really bringing together the science and the spirituality, which I think is a hallmark of the time that we're moving through right now. Is that something that you see as an inevitable event, an inevitable, I don't want to call it a clashing, a blending? Is that something that you see happening more and more?
Oh, absolutely. It's essential to our survival. And science and religion have often pictured as being opposed to each other, but actually, as I like to point out, God, the creator of the universe, is the author of science. And with all our
Right.
technology, we can't make a single blade of grass, or let alone a flower or a tree or a star. And the Vatican, among others, amazingly, is at the forefront of some of this. The Pope John Paul was an amateur astronomer since the age of 11. In fact, Brent, he was using two of my books at his private observatory at Castel Gandolfo, and
Wow.
he commissioned the building of that huge telescope on Mount Graham in Arizona. Most people
Right.
don't even know about it. It is open to the public. It's near the Kitt Peak National Observatory, the next mountain over, and we lovingly call it the Pope Scope because he had commissioned it. So they're very much in tune with the connection between science and religion. As a matter of fact, Brent, I might share this with you. 5 years ago, there was an international conference held at the Vatican Observatory, not the one in Arizona, but their headquarters in Rome. And
Mhm.
the conference theme was astrobiology, the search for life on other worlds. How about that?
Wow. That's incredible. And what is your opinion now? What is the research that you've found about life on other planets?
Well, um, all the building blocks for life are, well, let me back up.
Mhm.
Edgar Cayce is often quoted as saying there's no life out there. That's not true. There were two readings where he was asked if there's life, and it was life in our solar system, and his quote was, "No, none like us." And he's right. As far as we know, there's nobody like us in the solar system. But there's
Right.
billions of solar systems, and throughout his book and his readings, my book and his readings, it's obvious he not only talks about life elsewhere, journeys to various places, but he talks about our cosmic destiny, becoming citizens, one with the citizens of the universe, plural, okay, citizens out there. So there's no question that, again, we're living in a universe teeming with intelligent life.
Absolutely. And are there you talk a lot about the Casey readings, and you just have some incredible astronomical and just cosmic quotes from the Casey readings, and I'd love if you could share a few more that help too, because a lot of people just don't necessarily know that Casey talked about the number of subjects that he did, and they think about the holistic health aspect, and of course more of the metaphysical aspect. But what quotes do you have from Casey that are very near and dear to your heart, that are very cosmic in their perspective?
Oh dear, there's so many of them, Brent. I've already read my favorite one about someone owning a telescope, using a telescope that was found in prehistory. That's just
Right.
mind blowing. But he talks, as you mentioned earlier, about the music of the spheres. There are many, many, many readings about that, about listening to the music of the spheres. One of the ones that is really very telling, between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter is the asteroid zone. And tens of thousands of these bodies have been found from 500 miles across down to boulders. And it's thought that there was a planet there at one time that somehow disintegrated, or material that never formed a planet. Anyway, in one of the Cayce readings, he talks about the fact that one of the worlds is missing. He pinpoints it as there in the asteroid zone, and that there was a great disruption. That is absolutely amazing. That he wasn't an astronomer. He had no science background.
Right.
And there's so many of these other readings like that.
Absolutely. And excuse me, you're going to be a featured presenter at the upcoming a.r.e. Ancient Mysteries Conference, which of course is our most popular conference of the year. So I encourage everybody, if it's not already sold out by the time this airs, definitely make sure you attend that one. But can you tell us a little bit about what your presentation will be about?
Well, it'll be based on my book, Celebrating the Universe, and we'll be talking about the things we have on this show, why celebrate the universe, and how do we go about that. And one of the best ways is to become a stargazer. At heart, we're all stargazers if you look up at the sky at night. But I'll be going through those metaphysical benefits. We've talked about some of them. Others like expansion of consciousness, spiritual connection, the meditation, and so on. So I'll be going through some of those. And then the heart of the program is actually the Hubble Space Telescope images. We'll be starting on the Earth and going to the moon briefly. You rarely see pictures of the moon with the Hubble because it wasn't designed to work close up like that. All the way out to the almost 14 billion light year limit at the edge of the universe. And
wow.
I believe one of the things we'll be talking about is life in space, and I'll be announcing two discoveries just recently made about life out there that is just absolutely mind-blowing. Brent, the Kepler space mission, named after the great astronomer Kepler, has found in its mission, it's looking at a tiny piece of the sky in the constellations Cygnus and Lyra in the summer Milky Way. Have discovered over 3,500 solar systems, not just a planet, a star with a planet, but whole solar systems. And of those 3,500, some 600 lie in what's called the Goldilocks zone, and that's where the temperature is not too hot, not too cold, and liquid water can exist. So that's really exciting, and one of the discoveries we just announced involves one of those planets.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know you said that you're going to reveal a couple of the latest findings at the a.r.e. Annual Mysteries Conference, which is in October. Is there any other research that would be new that, excuse me, that you could reveal to us? Of course, not revealing the two things that you're going to reveal at the Ancient Mysteries Conference, but any other research that most people are just unaware of that it really help you gain that cosmic perspective?
Well, one of them is it's partly theoretical, but it's partly based on observational cosmology. It now seems certain, get this, Brent, that the universe we're living in, this bubble of light, the universe extends outward from where we are. We appear to be at the center. We're not. 14 billion light years in all directions. So there is this bubble, 28 billion light years across. And by the way, I'd like to come back to the light year in just a minute. But one of the discoveries is that it was theorized, there was circumstantial evidence, but there's now evidence that our universe is one of a multiple bubble universes. And you'll hear astronomers now not talking about the universe, they're talking about the multiverse.
Right.
And as Arthur Clarke said, it's a famous writer, it's like the bubbles that wash up on the seashore in the foam as the waves come in, continually appearing and disappearing. That we're living in an infinity of these bubble universes, which is just mind-blowing.
Wow.
But, Brent, in astronomy, talk about perspective, our minds cannot really wrap themselves around things like billions of light years. And for the listeners and viewers, I just wanted to share one thought experiment. As Einstein was famous for this. He would often do experiments sitting in his study, in his mind, totally going inside the atom, out among the galaxies. And The light year is the distance a beam of light travels in 1 year. Most everyone knows that. It's traveling at 186,000 miles a second. So to put that in perspective, if you turned on a flashlight and the light could bend, it would circle the Earth more than 7 times in that second. If you pointed at the
Wow.
sun, it takes about 8 minutes. At the outermost planets, like out toward Pluto and so on, about 5 hours. And the nearest star besides the sun, 4 years. So it's a big number. It's the number six with 12 zeros after it. That's 6 trillion. Well,
Yeah.
we can't comprehend that because you can walk a few miles, you can drive a few hundred, you can fly a few thousand, but when you get to millions, billions, and trillions, forget it. Well, here's the thought experiment. If you were to sit down in your favorite easy chair, okay, and start counting the number of miles in a light year at the rate of 1 a second, 1, 2, 3, and so on, guess how long it would take you to count up to that number 6 trillion? It would take you 150,000 years. Years. Just
Wow.
to count the number of miles in a light year. There's no star within a light year except our sun. And we're now 14 billion light years out. So, again,
Wow.
borrowing from Star Trek, it's a big universe, Mr. Scott.
Yeah. That cosmic perspective is such a powerful tool.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I wanted to end on a personal question. I've been reading a book that's been just really mind expanding for me. It was something that I was aware of these concepts and of course these wonderful figures. It's a book called Quantum Questions, and it's the mystic writings of what we think as the great quantum physicists: Einstein,
Mm-hmm.
um, Heisenberg, Schrodinger, Max Planck.
Right.
And I think it's so incredible that all these men who were doing these incredible theoretical experiments, and of course the mind experiments, where they were just always thinking cosmically, it actually brought them to bring Eastern religion and Eastern philosophy become very near and dear to the heart, because they found the connection between these
Yes.
multiverses and what, the inner workings of a black hole and exploring time space. All of these wonderful experiments that they were doing in a lab, they were able to link it to using their cosmic perspective to Eastern mysticism. And I think that's one
Yes.
of the most incredible things that you can gather from the life of these men, is that they were true mystics. And of course, I think you're right in line with that, which is it's incredible to have people like yourself who are helping to share and expand the mind of people, which is just unbelievable.
Thank you, Brent. Absolutely, the Eastern-Western connection is vital, and they did all become mystics, and the answers are there. Brent, maybe as an illustration, this is kind of interesting. The astronomers at the Kitt Peak National Observatory in Arizona, that observatory sits on the Hopi Indian Reservation, okay? And
Hmm.
the Indians call, and Native Americans call the astronomers the long eyes or the big eyes because of their telescopes. And
Right.
astronomers there will come up with some of their new discoveries and sit down and share it with the Native Americans, and they already knew about it. They
Wow.
intuitively knew about it. It was not news to them. And it's come to the point where now we need to spend some time with these kind of people to see what they already know. Again, it's another Edgar Cayce scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that just sharing with the wisdom of an elder, personally
Mm,
having that experience in my life helped me gain that cosmic perspective, because they remember, they have
hmm
been taught, all the wisdom has been passed down, and they remember the knowledge that we had of the cosmos, and they have that wonderful perspective which we can of course gain from. And you share that as
right.
well. Thank you so much for bringing that perspective.
Yeah, it's not all in the textbooks, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very,
One of
very
my
blessed to
favorite
have
quotes,
you part
Brent,
of the.
is
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
Mark Twain. He said, "School's fine, just don't let it get in the way of your education."
Yeah, I think Einstein had a very similar quote where he said, "Your education starts when you get out of school."
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jim, we're so honored to have you part of the family, and thank you so much for bringing that cosmic perspective to the world, because it's something that's very much needed in these tumultuous times. So thank you so
It
much.
is. Well, again, it's my
Absolutely.
privilege, to share the wonders of the universe with as many people as possible. And thanks to you for making it happen on the show.
Of course. Thank you for being on Reflection, Jim. This is truly an honor. So we look forward to seeing you in October at the a.r.e.
Okay, I'll look forward to it also. Bye bye.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Don't miss your chance to see Jim speak at the Ancient Mysteries Conference here at the a.r.e., and that's from October 9th through the 12th here in Virginia Beach. This is our most popular conference of the year, and tickets are going fast, so don't miss out. You can register now for this conference and others at edgarcayce.org/conferences. And to pick up any one of Jim's wonderful books, you can visit arecatalog.com or his author page at amazon.com. On behalf of everyone here at moretalk.tv and of course the Association for Research and Enlightenment, I'm your host Brenton Bickerstaff, reminding you to always take time to enjoy the beauty of the cosmos. Stargazing has always been a powerful tool for not only connecting you with our cosmic heritage, but also putting life and our perceived problems in perspective. Thank you so much for tuning in to Reflections, and happy stargazing, everybody. We'll see you next week. And now it's time for the thought for the day here on Reflections. And joining us as always is Dr. Bill Austin. Bill, thank you so much for joining us on Reflections for the thought for the day.
Oh, great to be back, Brent. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And if you can go ahead and read the thought for the day today for the listeners.
I'd be happy to. This thought is from reading 922-1. For it is as he is given, not the knowledge alone, but the practical application in your daily experience with your fellow man that counts. Well, so much for running away and spending the rest of my life in a cave. The Cayce readings always, talk about meditation as a way of communicating with the divine within. And in some cultures and historically, people have done that, that they've isolated themselves so that they could be in touch with the divine within on a constant basis without any worldly interruptions. And one thing about the Cayce readings is it talks about you grow through those daily interruptions. You grow through that communication, that contact with your fellow man, and how you express yourself. And it's through meditation or communicating with the divine within that you can become better at communicating with your fellow man, being of service to your fellow man, to help them along the way, to help them find the light that they're seeking for. So that, I really like the Cayce readings. It didn't say be a hermit. I guess you can if you want to. But he said, what did he say? No one gets to heaven except on the arm of another person. And so he was very much in tune with, yes, be connected to the divine within so that you have that inner peace and you can bring that out into the world. And boy, does this world need it. You look around and see the whole world needs it. Individuals need it. We need it ourselves, and it's always wonderful when we can get together with someone who is attuned to the things that we're attuned to help bring us back, to help restore our focus as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. For me personally, this strikes a personal note and something that I was dealing with a friend lately. We had lost contact for about the past year, and we came back together recently. Actually, last week he visited me in Virginia Beach, and we found out that we had parallel experiences over the past year, almost to a T. It was one of those synchronistic events where you realize, wow, when you are close to somebody, you guys can potentially go through, everyone has their own unique path, but there are shared themes that you'll go through. And it was very eye-opening to see that he was going through very similar themes manifesting physically in relationships and things like that. In saying that, related to the reading, I think he says in your daily experience with your fellow man, that's where you can take the practical application. I use it in this way, is that you find that connection with your fellow human being. And you can find, when you find that connection, it really helps to, it's like when, two people come together to pray or meditate, it really amplifies exponentially the energy that they're emitting, that they're sending off into the world. When two people come together and make that connection, you can see that how similar we really are. And you guys can help to give each other feedback and bounce back ideas, and you can get insights that you can really only get from that experience, that interaction with your fellow human beings. And to me, that's such a beautiful thing, because there's so much shared experiences that are going on in our journeys, as unique as they all are. And if you're not connecting with people and using your relationships to build up strength and spiritual growth, you're going to miss this completely. Like you said, you can't. The hermit path is one path, but the Cayce material stressed our interaction, our daily interaction with everybody, as the most powerful spiritual path.
Yes, I
Absolutely.
agree. I like that.
Thank you. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us for the thought for the day. It's always wonderful to share your wisdom.
Well, thank you again, Brent, for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'll see you next week, Bill.
I look forward to it. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.